Welcome to this Big Belly deck skeleton. Before I begin, I will quickly explain what I mean with deck skeleton. What I really like to do with decks like these, that aren't super competitive but still pretty decent, have a lot of options, have a lot of combo potential, I like to get a little creative. And so, rather than giving you the, objectively very best list, blah blah blah, I will give you every single option you have when building this list. So you can basically do with it whatever you want, depending on the meta, depending on your preference. I'm not saying every single option is as good as the other one, but I will give you every one that I think is still decent. So no, really. We have the option, of course, of running 4 of the new BigBelly. She is better in a lot of ways than the old BigBelly. She lets you call something from hand and then give the skill plus 4k kill and draw. The problem is it has to be a success unit that you call from hand, and you only have to choose one unit, whereas this one gives you 2 units, but it has to hit. So some more pressure really, while simultaneously maybe giving more draw or maybe giving less draw depending on what your opponent does. So you have the option of running either 4 of this BigBelly or 4 of the old ones. I personally prefer these, but I have seen some builds using this one. Now another choice you have is maybe running 3. If you are running Mike Saburo and the whole early engine, it's pretty easy to get these even if you only run 3. Another pretty cool grade 3 is this one, Ink Panda. When it's successful and attacks, you draw a card and at the end of the turn, kill it. It's also really easy to become successful, it's a 20k. This is something I've seen run here and there. I'm personally not a huge fan of it, but I can definitely see why you want to do that. Also, you keep the Panda team if that's your thing. You also have this one. That's really some cool pressure because when it's successful, you can give your rearguard a +1 crit for a counterblast. When you ride it, you get the typical Soul Blast counterblast. So I definitely get why people would want to be using this one to really give some pressure on those rearguard columns. However, my favorite option for a backup grade 3 is Tusk Master. It's basically a Crayon Tiger but without the draw. But because it's a grade 3, you get to search it with Mike. Personally, I run 3 new belly and 2 of this one, but it's really up to you. Like I said, these deck skeletons are made to be more like, you can get creative with the build, and obviously some builds are better than others, but I don't really care when it's not a mega competitive deck. For the next one, you have no choice. You really need to run 4 Crayon Tiger. It is so good. It allows you to do so many plays, it puts so much pressure, it gives you draw. It's too great, you have to run 4 Crayon Tiger. 4 Binoculus Tigers. Now, if you are running the pure rush build, the early game, running 4 Bino, running your 4 Mike, 4 Duckbill, 12 crit, then you definitely want to be running him. But if that's not your thing and you're going more for that late game success build, you might not want to run him. Another really cool option is Grey Belly. This is when you're going for the actual success build. The problem with him, however, is, and not a lot of people know this guy has to be 20k before the boost in order to get his skill. So his skill says you Soul Blast 1. When he's successful and you have a BigBelly Vanguard, you pick 2 units, give them plus 4k, kill them at the end and draw. The problem is, getting this unit to be successful before getting boosted is really, really hard. You have to consistently get him, use BigBelly's skill to pump him, and then use Herimter's skill on him. At least in first try. Once you try into BigBelly, it's pretty easy to get him that high. But like, that's such a drawback that some people are considering not running him at all. Once he does go off though, the draw is very, very nice. Another option you have is Field Glass Otter. I will relate this to another choice you're making. This guy works against Duckbill and Mike Saburo, your grade 1 options. And so some people prefer to not run him because of that. I am one of those people. Even though he's a very great card, he can basically give plus 4k to something, and when he's successful, you can bounce him back at the end of the turn. So you get the draw skills from a lot of cards like Grey Belly, Crayon Tiger, BigBelly, and so forth. But the skills like Duckbill and Mike's, who say, hey, he has to die for you to get a draw, those don't go off. So when this is one of your only rearguards that's going to be retired, that's a really, really harsh inconsistency. You can run him. Another option you have, of course, is Guru Wolf. This is more so part of the early game rush build. He really puts some pressure because when he's above 20k and he hits, you draw a card. So what you will often do is you will have your Guru Wolf, maybe your Bino here, Mike here. your Mike skill on there. Bino gives him +4, and that becomes 20 because 16 and then 4, 20. So Guru Wolf, pretty nice for the early rush build. Not so amazing in the late game though. Another option is Geograph Giant. If you're one of those people who still wants to be running 10Ks, I definitely get that. Another option is Anchor Rabbit. She's really cool because she can restand on her own, so you don't need Crayon Tiger for that, but she's pretty costly. Really, it depends because this deck can go through resources pretty fast. And then also we have the option of running Lesser Rider. I do have playsets of all of these cards, but I don't have them here right now. Lesser Rider can basically give your whole field resist, which really ruins Hand Trap. Given the new Deleter G-Guard, Mega Colonies card, and fucking Denial Griffin and so forth, and Narukami's new G-Guard, this card is a very good contender, maybe even a 4-off, given how Control is really making a comeback here. Finally, we also have this option, Compass Lion, an 11k, also part pretty much of the early game rush. Usually you will have something like 4 Crayon Tiger, and then if you go for the early build, you will probably have a combination of Binoculus Tiger, maybe Geograph Giants, maybe Guru Wolves, maybe Compass Lions, or maybe Sleepy Tapirs. If you are, however, going for a more late game build, it might be that you're still running Binos, but if you're not, you might be running something like 4 Grey Belly, and then maybe 3 Lesser Riders. On to grade 1s. You can run Shell Master, the Unflip PG, great card. I personally prefer this because we go through Counterblast so fast. And also, the other PG option has some drawbacks, but I will give it anyway. So this is Maltese, the Success PG. I really like the art, and I wish it was better. Problem is the killing is a cost. And the one card you actually want to be abusing with her is Traveling Momonga, whose skill does not work when he's retired for a cost. So that's why people don't really go into Maltese, because she's like very clunky and doesn't synergize with the whole Success build. That's why a lot of people, including me, still prefer Shell Master. For Mike, part of the early rush build, but I would say you have to run it in every single build. Up to you though, but I really prefer this. This guy gives us the consistency we need to ride into BigBelly at all times. And so you are able to run more different cool grade 3s and also always ride into BigBelly. Because if you're not running him, you might be forced into running 4 new belly and 3 old belly. Another interesting option is our Dog Bill. A lot of people love him, and a few people are moving away from him. He's also part of that early rush build. I could definitely see why some people prefer getting him out for Traveling Momonga in order to be able to fetch crayons and play a bit more of a late game. Now, of course, we also have Stride Fodders. You can play a little bit less if you're going for the Mike build with the early rush, because you will always have enough grade 3s. Definitely get why you would want to run 4. Another option is our Traveling Momonga. This guy is so good. Sadly, in my build, I run the rush build. I don't really have the room for him. But basically, when he's successful and retired, you get to fetch a grade 2 or greater card. So you can search for Stride Fodder, you can search for Crayon Tiger, you can search for Grey Belly. Amazing card. Label Pangolin is another option a lot of people are running. Reason is, this deck is pretty resource heavy. Like, you've got your Grey Belly, you've got your Big Belly using Counterblast, you've got your Great Force using Counterblast, you have got your Crayon Tiger using a Counterblast, you've got a lot of stuff using Counterblast. And so Label Pangolin just pretty much gives you some stuff back, and often can even swing twice with Crayon Tiger. So if you're in a real pickle, you can go for him, because not a lot of people like going into Fernigas because you really deck out with him, and so this is a solid option. Finally, pretty much a trolley card, but I really actually liked him, Soft Tank Sloth. The reason is, in the build I used to run, I didn't really have soul problems, but I had a lot of counterblast problems, and so I just started abusing him. It was fun, it was a fun tech, but obviously not the most objectively superior version of the deck. Then going into triggers. Funnily enough, you don't have to run these. For example, if you are playing the early rush build, you actually really want to run 5Ks. Reason being, if you have, let's say, a Holder Hedgehog and a Bino Tiger, you can call down your Mikes and your Duck Bills and put all the skills on him. And then when you swing with Bino Tiger, give him +4, making it a 9k who can swing. And that way you have a 14k column here from Duck Bill and Mike, your 14k column here from Bino and your starter, and then this 9k. And that's very nice, because if you were running this one, it would be 8, not enough to hit. Even though I would suggest running it in a big belly build, you don't really have to. It's awesome to give power, it's awesome to boost with, it's awesome to get more soul, I get it, but I mean, if you want the consistency of the early game, perhaps you don't. Holder Hedgehog, you have to run this, preferably foil. Basically, I hate most Great Nature's crits, and this one is just so nice looking, so I definitely want to run 4, but doesn't really matter. You can either run the 12 crit build, which a lot of people are doing. You can run 6-6 and go for the stand that a lot of people are a fan of. You have the orangutan and you have the elephant, which both are really great options. Some people are even suggesting to play these 4, and I'm not a part of these people. I feel like Great Nature decks out enough already, but what these people are basically saying is that you need rearguard pieces in order to get everything running, and also soul is a big problem in the deck if you are abusing Grey Belly. So I get them. Some people say like run 2. I get it. I'm just really not a fan of it. Finally, heal triggers. I don't see why you would be running anything but him, because in the early game rush you still wouldn't be calling down a heal trigger to boost. So I would personally just run this one because the counter blast can be nice, but if you really like the art of another one, go ahead. Finally, we have some starter options. I'd say these 4 are the most popular ones. Let me know if I forget any. So we have this one, giving you some counter charge and maybe even giving some units some boosts. That's definitely an option. Also, it's a success unit. Maybe you find some interesting thing here and there. Maybe if you run Maltese, the perfect guard, you could sack him or something. Now we have this one, which a lot of people are a fan of, because basically, when your Vanguard hits, you choose one of your other rear guards, you give it plus 4k, kill it and draw. And so, that pressure, that on-hit pressure of fuck, when he hits, I will be forced into letting him draw a card, is very, very nice. And this one was like the fan favorite back when the deck was still Chat Noir with Leopold. I don't really see him being run right now, but he also gives you a draw. And then Telescope Rabbit, which is basically the option if you're running the rush build. That just lets you nuke something early on in the game, so if you don't ride into Bino Tiger, you can still use your mics and your duck bills. Personally, if you are running the rush build, I would go for him. If you are running the more late gamey build, you would probably be looking at one of these 2. Finally, the G-Zone. You pretty much always want to be running 4 BigBelly. I don't have the 3rd and the 4th because I'm personally a Chat Noir player, but you really want to be running 4 BigBellies in your BigBelly build. It's just, it works so well with it. 2 mana Garmer. I don't think we have the room to be running 4. 2 is definitely a decent number. Gives some pressure, but really isn't that amazing anymore. I would put him at 2. Some people even take him out. Then we also have the GB8 option. I use him, but I almost never go into him because we just usually deck out before it happens. We also have Fernigas as an option. Basically lets you refresh your resources like crazy. However, it makes you deck out so easily, because if you're abusing it to the max, you are basically soul charging 5 and drawing 5. Essentially milling 10 cards, which is just so damn much. Also, usually when you're in a pickle like that, you don't have the counterblast and the soul blast to pay for that. You really need to have some foresight before going into him. Then Afank, another control matchup killer. Given the current format, you want to be running 2, maybe even 3. I wouldn't go with 3, but definitely 2 in this very Kagero heavy meta. Makes your field indestructible. The interesting thing is that it doesn't actually say resist. Cards like Defeat Flare, which don't target, actually still don't destroy your back row. So I would definitely actually pump him up to 2. Given the current meta. Then Herimters, you might want to be playing 2 of these. Usually you run that as a first stride or when you brick, because even when you brick, he will usually give you a draw. He will usually give a line some power and you could pump some triggers on there. And it's just overall a pretty versatile card. However, your unit has to be 20k when getting the 8k. So again, boosting doesn't do anything. Your unit needs to have some power boost before you give the 8k, or else you lose the draw. Then G-Guards. This is the one place where Great Nature was pretty blessed. So we have Kundalini as an option. You can run 2 or 1 or none of them. He basically gives you counter charge. What I usually do is I use him to blow up my starter Telescope Rabbit, because in the late game Telescope Rabbit is actually pretty bad. I just get rid of it, get some counter charge in. Really solid card. Almirage is another really nice one. Maybe given the current control meta, he might be interesting. Then again, most control decks nuke before the battle phase. Then Ardillo. The really great thing about this card is that he's basically always a 25k. Usually your field is very, very empty, and because of that he gets his free guard, which is very nice. Finally, we have this option, Spangled. Spangled is basically a great hand refresher. If you think like, damn, I have so many great 3s in hand, or dead cards, or too much 5k shields, you just throw it down, use his skill, refresh your whole hand, and you're ready to guard again. Also, he makes you unflip with this one, so you might be running 2 and not necessarily always using the skill, but more so using her skill to actually get some counter charge in. Then again, also costs a soul blast, so if you're running the gray bellies and abusing that a lot, you might not have the soul for it. Now for strides, I quickly also want to mention the deck filler that gives you those 4 cards from drop to deck. I get why you want to run him in BigBelly. I definitely would, because decking out is a real issue. However, it's pretty hard to get success 25 when you're not striding something that gives you extra power, so that's really something to think about. So that was the deck skeleton. Let me know if this is an interesting format to you, whether I should be doing more deck skeletons of different decks, whether you like the creative aspect of it, or you really prefer just copying decks from a deck profile, which I respect as well. I really don't care. Let me know, subscribe for more, like the video, and I will see you soon. Ciao! Sponsored by Royalty Playmat Designs, the perfect way to get a custom and exclusively for you design for your Vanguard playmats. Choose your units, choose some or no zones, choose a tagline, a team name, the name of your bunny, anything your heart desires at Royalty Playmat Designs.